Hello and welcome to Downtown. I'm your host, Robbie Haig. Thank you for being with us again. It's our pleasure to have you here. Today we will be talking with Cyndy and Ken Jones, who are the co-founders of Heroes in Transition. Welcome to Downtown, Ken and Cyndy.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Very good. It's our pleasure to have you. And I am very interested in Heroes in Transition and just what it means. Could you give us a little background or foreground or?
Sure. We had our wonderful son, who was, from the time 4, wanted to be a Marine, and from the time 11, wanted to be a pilot. And after graduating 1 month after Northeastern, went straight into OCS down in Quantico. And Eric then got his wings and was stationed out in California.
Marine Corps.
In the Marine Corps. And Eric was a Huey pilot. And Eric fulfilled his dream. He made 2 tours, one to Iraq and then the second one to Afghanistan. And it was in Afghanistan 2 weeks before he was to return home. His squadron was to come home. There was a collision, and they were on a night mission, and there was a collision between the Huey and the Cobra. And
Wow.
Eric and 3 other Marines perished that night.
Wow.
So losing Eric and knowing what Eric, his love for his crew, his love for the Marines, and his desire to help them. That's why he picked Huey's helicopters, because he wanted to be close to the troops on the ground. Mm-hmm. Eric had this inside of him, this mission inside of him. And when Eric came home, we decided that we were going to carry on Eric's mission and his legacy. So we formed Heroes in Transition with one of his closest friends, who is a second brother, a brother to Eric, Mike Washaw, who is now the president of Heroes in Transition. And we sat down after the funeral and talked about doing some research and finding areas of which we could help. We found areas that local, private, and federal agencies just can't fulfill, and that's where we came up with our mission.
And I'd like to also mention that you've told me that Eric was your only son.
Yes.
So
we were blessed.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
And you now have, now that you're both retired, you have a mission in life.
We do.
Indeed.
We do.
I'm sure it's a great deal different than what you had planned when.
We don't know what God's plans are. You know, He closes one door, but other doors have opened up. This has really helped us tremendously. Ken and I are, Ken was an only child, and I had a brother who passed after Eric passed, so we basically are, we don't have much family. And
But you
doing the
certainly-
foundation, a lot of people have come into our lives and
Wonderful.
helping veterans, and
Wonderful.
and they have become our family now. So we're being fulfilled. God has
Excellent.
provided us with that.
So how did you, Heroes in Transition is a wonderful name, I love it. So how do you help the veterans?
We have 4 parts to our mission. We started with home modification because the pilot that was with Eric that night survived and he lost his leg. So we did some home modifications there. Eric's love for dogs It was a natural thing for us to look into PTSD, service dogs, post-traumatic distress disorder. And that was because of Eric's love, which has taken off of all our missions. I think this one is the one that's most recognized. We also realized and did some research that transitioning back into a civilian life is quite a challenge. What our veterans have experienced is something that we as civilians could never even begin to imagine.
Right.
And we just felt that there was an area that we could help them to simulate back into a normal life. And we have done a few things in that area. And then the other part was a financial assistance. And what we do is we give ongoing grants to selected organizations.
Very good.
So,
very good.
yeah, we our PTSD dogs has grown and evolved.
Yeah.
We've now, last year, we found a trainer here on the Cape,
Very
Matt
good.
Noon of High Noon Canine, is working under our umbrella, our 501c3 umbrella, and he trains. The dogs that he trains they're not puppies. He likes to train them between 12 and 18 months when they're through that puppy stage. So our rate of success is much higher because he evaluates the dogs. And he spends a lot of time with the veteran, interviewing the veteran to see specifically what that veteran needs and match the dog to the veteran and then train the dog.
Good.
And once he trains the dogs, he becomes very much a part of the vet. So a lot of our veterans come back and they're praising Matt, and they have friendships, a friend in Matt, there's a trust level in Matt and the dog. So we've seen that as highly successful.
Very good. And Ken, your background in marketing must have helped you get this off the ground, did it?
It did. It definitely did. A lot of the same old tricks, so to speak, and
Yeah.
same old stresses.
Yeah,
But
worthwhile.
absolutely.
Absolutely, that's great. And so you have a supplier of dogs for the...
Our dogs, we have a lot of dogs right here on the Cape. I think
Yeah.
we have about 22
Wow.
veterans with our service dogs. We have over 32 dogs that are out. And it's fun to, yesterday we had a blood drive for our son. And one of the veterans came with his dog. And it's amazing that when a dog walks into the room, how people just automatically relate. So that's very successful. We also, but we do other things. We for our transitional therapy, we do equine therapy now. We have evolved from being in a room with 2 social workers now out to the farm and working with horses.
Very good.
And this is what sitting in a room and talking about it is not what is comfortable for our men and women. But we now do. We started with a program called FIT, Families in Transition. And when we started that, it's in the summer. We give them a week in the summer from 3 to 8, which now goes from 3 to 7. We bring the families in, the military families in. Sometimes it may be that the fathers or mothers are deployed, or it may be that they're just coming back from a deployment, so you have a whole family unit. And the first year we did it, a National Guard group just deployed in June. And we have this in August, and we had just the mothers and the children. And it was just an unbelievable week. And it has grown, and it's been very successful. We had children that came and were very quiet, didn't know the other children, and the mothers didn't know the other mothers. And we immediately started with 2 hours of equine therapy, and we worked with the horses. They learned to ride, they learned to groom. And they were very offstandish because nobody knew each other. But at the end of the night, you could see a bond being created.
Yeah.
we had one little girl who's 9 years old, and her father had deployed 3 times in her lifetime. And she was, when she came, he had left in June. She had not emailed him or Skyped him because she was so angry that he had left her again.
Wow.
So she came that night, very quiet, looked around and saw other children who were in the same boat as she was. Their dads were gone. And at the end of the night, when she got in the car with her mom, she said, "Mom, I want to Skype Dad. I want to tell Dad what I did tonight with the horses."
Excellent.
So it opened up the door, and at the end of the week, there was a nice bond, and working with the horses, it was just amazing because
There's nothing quite like community either, is
Yeah.
there?
We
For sure.
have part of that program is that we bring in meals, real wholesome meals, and Roach Brothers has been absolutely wonderful in helping us
Very
with that.
nice.
And they donate. They donated a meal that was just unbelievable. But and you know, some other local restaurants, Dino's, and has helped. But being together, eating together. I really have this thing with food and fellowship. And then after dinner, the adults go into the house. Jan Foster owns the farm. She allows us to come and work with the horses. She has 72 horses.
Really?
She's got painted horses where therapy horses is what we work with. And she's just absolutely wonderful. And we're working with Carrie Bickford also from Operation Military Kids. But the adults go into the house and they have their own time together to talk about issues that they're facing with either somebody deployed or coming back and trying to simulate into a family unit again. And we have 2 psychologists that come and facilitate the group. And then while the adults are in the house, we have the children and we have different people coming in. We have a lovely lady that comes in and does drumming one night, or somebody does cookie decorating, or the games. So it's a week of bringing people together. And that has grown. We are now going to start in March or in April, the beginning of April. We have a now program for just veterans, an equine program that is facilitated by a veteran, a female veteran, Nancy Ross, and that will be on Thursday mornings from 10 to 11:30 at the Smithfield Farms. So we've gone from being in a room, which it just wasn't as successful, now out to the farms to be with horses, and so we're just trying to find ways in which our veterans can come back, create a bond, and just be
They
quiet.
ride the horses on the, do they actually ride the horses?
Oh, yes.
In the, yes.
They ride. Jan Foster had them all riding, and her Red Shands Carol. Some of them had never ridden before.
Right.
By Thursday, they were riding bareback.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yes.
Yeah, you had
Something I wouldn't do.
Well, you had mentioned that the kids, of course, were grooming the horses and so on and so forth. So it's a great togetherness sort of thing.
It's just an unbelievable experience. And Smithfield Farm is a magical place anyways, because Jan has rabbits, she has goats, she has miniature horses, chickens, geese. It's just an amazing place. So, and she welcomes people to come. Sometimes veterans will, just at the end of the day, just drive up her driveway and go in and just be in a stall with a horse.
Yeah.
There's something peaceful about being with a giant, beautiful, gentle giant, I call them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned that men and women. Do you have women in the group that have come back with?
Well, Nancy Ross, who's going to be facilitating the veterans group, I believe she has 2 women that have already signed up to be with her.
Okay.
These are all free programs, by the way.
Okay.
These are programs that we
Thank
sponsor.
you for that.
This is strictly through Heroes in Transition. So veterans are welcome to do this. And we're hoping that veterans will follow up and be part of the programs. We provide even the dogs. There's no fee for veterans. And yes, we do. In fact, we have 2 females that have dogs. And we're hoping that more female veterans will take advantage of this,
Very
of the
good.
equine program.
I'm sure you have a website.
Yes, we do. We have www.heroesintransition.org, and the information is there. We have a Facebook page also.
Excellent.
Um,
So you deal with people on the Cape?
Mainly
Only?
our networking, because Ken and I are retired here. Our networking is here, mostly here.
This is where
and
you have the boots on the ground, so to speak.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we-
would you object to someone coming from off Cape?
No.
Not at all.
In fact,
we have a lot of people off Cape.
we're now
Good.
working with a veteran from Plymouth, as a matter of fact, and I'm hoping that she will be part of the equine program because she's connected with Nancy. What is interesting about this is the networking, and sometimes I know I'm a conduit. That's really my
Yes.
job, is a conduit, either from high above or conduit here. But sometimes a veteran will call me asking about a service dog. And in listening to the veteran, sometimes a person's name may come to my mind, or I will start connecting them to other people. It's not unusual for someone to call and say, I'm a female veteran, and I feel alone here on the Cape, and I need to get involved. And now with working with our veterans, I can introduce them to somebody and create that bond
Right.
that is needed.
Very good. So you do have volunteers working with you?
We have volunteers that help us with the FIT program in the summertime. I will have my friends. Our friends will come and help serve dinner.
Nice.
To our veterans. Volunteering it's not a, we don't use volunteers in like most organizations do. I don't think we're that big enough yet. It's volunteers to help us with our gala.
You have a gala.
We have,
do.
this is how this is how we get funded.
Okay.
And being here on the Cape has been probably about the best place you could start a foundation. The Cape is very sensitive and very welcoming to our veterans, and I think there's a lot of veterans here in this area and over the bridge. And so how we do our funding is through galas. We have 2 galas, one in New York and in the spring.
Really?
Because half our board is in New York, half of Eric's friends. Eric grew up in New York.
Oh, how interesting.
But our roots are here because his grandmother, his grandparents lived here. His grandmother lived in Dennis, and Ken's parents lived in Mashpee. So Eric's first trip at 8 months old was to the Cape. So the Cape has been very welcoming, and we have our fall gala at the Coonamessett Inn in the Cape with Bill and Linda Zammer, who have been extremely generous to us.
Wonderful.
And we have, we usually sell out
Excellent.
at the Coonamessett, and that's where we get our revenue. Most that's our biggest affair. Those 2 galas, and then and what's beautiful to watch is that as we become known, other people are doing fundraising for us. We have Anytime Fitness in Mashpee. Eric has done some fundraising for us. He did a 24-hour marathon.
Wow.
I can't imagine people going to the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning, but they
Nor
did.
I.
I think that's what they call youth. Sometimes, organizations, we get a lot of support from organizations, from the men's club, there's Mashpee Men's Club. I don't want to go through the whole thing because I know I'm going to forget people, but one of the sweet things that happened was the Southport in Mashpee has been supporting us, and last year they decided to do a triathlon, and they had a goal to raise money for a dog, and they did.
Nice.
And they have a dog, and the dog is named Southie, and Southie, who is now here being trained, is going to a resident in Southport. So it's nice to see that connection, you know, make that circle.
Right.
So, but this is what's happening, and it's in a way, it's beautiful to sit back and watch the connections that are being made. Our dogs are named after people can, some people who donate for a dog, they name a dog, and it's nice to see that connection of a dog being named after somebody who has served, who has passed, or and to see that that person's being honored by a dog.
Nice.
And then the veteran getting the dog, and then the veteran
Wonderful.
meeting the person that has donated the money for the dog. So it
Really?
comes again full circle.
Really.
It brings
And
it all together,
Bringing the family together.
bringing the families together.
You had mentioned also that you have a little or a lot background with the military. That from your son's area.
With his Marine brothers.
Yes,
Yes, they have been, because Eric was out in California. After Eric passed, they formed a team. We called them the HIT team, and they ran the Ragnar race for us, another 24-hour race.
Wow.
Along the coast of California. And that's an interesting story too, because recently one of Eric's Marine brothers, his father passed, and he sent an email to us saying that, you know, all the donations, they were going to ask for memorial donations be given to us in memory of his dad. And I started emailing him back and telling him how honored I was, and because he ran the Ragnar race, and his father was Navy, a very strong naval officer, I just wrote and I said, Burr, would you and your family like the honor of having a dog named after your dad?
Wow.
And I just received an email from him, and he said, you know, this was great fun for us to be together as a family and trying to decide what to name the dog for Dad. And he said, you know, it brought joy into our lives.
How wonderful.
And so there'll be a dog, Sterling, with that will become. But it's to think that something that, you know, losing something, the sorrow, and to try to turn that sorrow around to bring some joy into a person's life.
Right.
So
it's the old
an
lemonade
amazing journey.
the lemonade thing.
Yes.
I'm loving hearing you say that you have California, the Cape, and New York. I mean,
and we did home modification in South Carolina. That was a sad story. He was hurt many times and developed cancer, which is not unusual for our men and women
He was a
coming
captain
back.
in the Army, right?
Yes, and so we helped that with home modification. Sometimes when they come back so disabled, it takes a long time to come in, for the government to come in and all the paperwork. Sometimes it just has to be done very quickly because they have to live in that environment. So we were able to scoot in fast, quickly come in, modify his home before he went home because he was operated on, and help with that.
So you do that also.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, the time goes by very fast, as you know.
Yes.
And I am fascinated by what you're doing and how it came about, and hopefully we have people out there who will be getting in touch with you and talking more about it, and
That'd be great.
it would be
wonderful.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
I
this
think it's
honor
a
of being
wonderful
here.
thing that you are doing, and I compliment you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Not
having
an
me.
not an easy thing to do, is it? But and thank you all out there for being part of this, for watching the show, and we hope to see you again soon. This is your host, Robbie Haig, And thanks for being here.